use it as a powerful sampler, basically. So also, you know, like, I don't know, drum machines and everything. And it's quite easy, as we have seen. You have this function play, and you have, of course, the, how do you call it in English? I don't remember.
Brackets? No. Yeah, quotation marks.
Quotation marks, yeah. And within quotation marks, you can write whatever you want. We will see. Now it's an easy example. Kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat. And this works very well with short samples, but then you can maybe from time to time want to use longer samples. And here's the function loop, which is a little bit tricky, I have to say, but it's very powerful when you're entering in the reasoning of how it works.
Use the loop synth to play back your
This
own
is like
files.
the
FoxDot test audio file.
The only sample you have as a loop. Within the folder of sample S&D, and then you enter the sample folder, you will have an underscore loop underscore folder, which can contain loops directly. And you can also subdivide in subfolders, of course, but then, yeah. Now, since I'm still introducing it, we can share these. There are a couple of loops, should be royalty-free. Not everyone, actually, but yeah, there are some MIA paper planes samples, which are, yeah, not royalty-free, but who cares? So, yeah. See. And then you have to find where are the folders containing the sampler, the samples. So, for example, in Linux-based, you have home.config, and then I use Renardo, but also in FoxDot, I think it's the same. Yeah, and then samples, and then you have here this underscore loop underscore, and then you can contain all the loops, well, longer samples that you want.
Just between, like, if you're in a traditional FoxDot editor, I think there is in the menu there's an open sample folder.
Ah, okay, nice, yeah. Because I use Pulsar, but yeah, that's true. In FoxDot editor, you can find also locate the sample folder, and then you access more easy.
There's an option in the menu to open up, and you go there straight there.
If yeah, and oh yeah, help and settings, and then open samples folder. Yeah, and here in Renardo you have two, and then inside there is loop. And then you can copy the content of the folder over there.
Folder loop, right? Sorry.
Yeah. You want to close this, and yeah. So yeah, loop basically works a little bit different in the sense that here is a string that is the name of the file. Usually I don't think you need to specify the file format, but then if you don't have a WAV, you can still write it.
Back your own files, FoxDot.
And then, yeah, the fun fact with loop is that you can actually play a portion of the sample. So, for example, I have this nice interview by Ian McKay, frontman of Fugazi and other Minor Threats and all great bands in hardcore punk, and he's talking about punk, and is.
It could be called blues or rock or beat. It could be called techno. It's just a new idea. For me, it was punk rock. That was my entrance to this idea of the new ideas being able to be presented in an environment which wasn't being. They said, "What is punk? Like, what is punk?" How do you define punk?
But I can play also
Here's how I
a
define
portion,
punk. It's a free space.
changing these values within the p and square brackets, and then you can from 13 to 16 it will play as a
Free
loop.
space. Just a free space. Just a free space. Just a free space.
And of course you can
Just a free
start, you know,
space.
experimenting
Just a
with
free
these, like,
space. Just a free.
this sounds like a shaker, and you can use it, maybe pitch a little bit. Still more. And you can also add more than one portion in sequence.
Idea of tech idea of tech idea of tech idea of
And so on and so forth. But we will come back later on loops. Now let's focus on samples. Yeah.
How do I access the folder that I just downloaded with the cursor?
So you have to copy the content of the folder within the loop folder in your sample folder of Renardo or FoxDot.
Okay.
So you have to locate first where the samples are stored, and then there is this underscore loop underscore, and you can merge the two folders.
Sorry.
So no problem. Feel free to interrupt me whenever you want. I mean, as I was saying, okay, let's start with some easy beat, like quite a good rhythm, an easy one. And the thing is that you could start to use brackets, and there are three kind of brackets, of course, with three different functionalities. The first one as round brackets, and then it basically will play for the first cycle, the first content samples of the brackets, and then later on the second cycles it will play the second one. So like this sounds is kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, and then it goes back and it's like hi-hat, kick, snare, hi-hat. While with square brackets, you can actually subdivide the beat that you're playing. Like, for example, we were using this, always the same example, a little bit boring, but still. It's like kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat. And you can think about this as four main sections within square brackets that you can actually enter and write more sample to play, not at the same time. They won't overlap the sample, but it will be played one after the other at the same time length of of duration of one. So
you will divide the tempo.
yeah, I mean it. Like this, it's the same, right?
Yeah.
But then if I add another one, on the second beat, two samples will be played in sequences. And I added two samples more. So now the second step is divided in four sub-steps. And we can go on and on. For example, you can also, if you start to add samples and samples and samples reproduced very quickly, you're starting to somehow making some random sound design, I would say. For this experiment, please lower the volume because it could be harsh, especially with headphones. But then if I Can you hear the different sounds like glitches? Because I'm basically playing all these hi-hats sample within a short time, yeah. So this is fun. And the last functionalities we can see is with brackets is the graph brackets. It's called like this, yeah, graph.
Curly brackets.
Curly. Sorry for my English. Very bad English, sorry.
Nobody knows what they call in English.
But still, these ones. And within this one, it doesn't affect the timing. It will choose randomly or semi-randomly among different options you are set it in. And you can nest, of course, brackets. So for example, right now, it will play for sure a kick, and then either an hi-hat or both two different snare sound samples within one time steps, and then another hi-hat. So let's see. Basically random. And of course you can always add more and more. Of course, if you want to double the probability for a sample to be played, you add more. This is like the rough way of doing that. If you really want to more hi-hat, you add like 5 hi-hats, so you can actually...
So it randomizes, is not...
Yeah, this is the randomization function within the player. But then, let's move on a little bit. Because when you are like programming on the fly, maybe you start with something like this one, and it could take a while to, you know, define another one. Let's say, yeah, okay, I also want hi-hats, and I'm counting and whatever, and I can do it. Of course, I can also do like this. But then if you want, you know, to subdivide different parts, for example, if you want, like, expecting a drop, and you want to isolate the kicks, you can use these other that are not brackets but still like minus and major signs, and with these functionality you can actually play 2 samples at the same time, at the very same time, so it overlaps. So if I also add, like, for example, a tabla sound here, it will play at the same time of X, so the kick. And you can feel there's a difference with this, for example. So this can really be useful when you're doing maybe intricate beats in which you want to control some part, and then you can easily remove it. Like if I want to change very quickly, I will cut the kick part and have a nice drop, and then Ctrl Z, I go back in, and this is like quite fast and easy, at least for me, because of course it's live coding, so everyone has its own way of doing things. So yeah, more beats, more and more. Then you can have some time to experiment with brackets. Well, the only general rule is always remember to close brackets, so, and it should work. Yeah, so we can also move towards sample player attributes. Yeah.
Excuse me, I missed what the parenthesis, the normal parenthesis means in...
For the normal parentheses,
but I missed it.
Oh, no, 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 no. Don't worry. I'm going also quite, fast, and then my English is not the best. And so, no, with these parentheses, this part that I highlighted will be played in the first cycles, and in the second cycles, this part will be played instead of the first one. So you can have some parts, to create more dynamic beats. You can have some parts that is not always repeating in a loop. You're still creating a loop because a play function is a loop, basically. And yeah.
No, just to understand. So, in the first time we will play x thing, then x/o/, and then the second loop is played /x/o/x.
Yeah, it will be kick. We're gonna hear it in a second, but it will be like kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, and then second cycles hi-hat, kick, snare, hi-hat.
Okay,
so like this. And as I was saying,
so it's a variation of the first beat, first two beats.
and so on and so forth. Yeah, so these are the three parentheses plus one you can use. I think these square brackets are really interesting for making some sorts of odd rhythms, because of course you can also add some pauses within a short period. So it will take the time of 5 samples, but actually it's gonna be playing only the X and this, and you can change it very fast. I'm doing things at random, but just to show you how it's easy, to get this feeling of different rhythms which are outside the 4 on the floor. The 4 on the floor one. Yeah, so far so good. Everyone, you want to take like 5 minutes to experiment a little bit, or we are running a little bit late on the schedule, so I don't know if I can add. But anyway, I will provide you with this script also for sure. I will find a way. Maybe I will upload on the USB stick later. Yeah, so sample player attributes, probably Ellie was mentioning you before, but you can have duration, and within these attributes you can have some interesting values. Oh, wow.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't even... Okay, so for example, pdur, mentioning pdur before? No, okay. So it's like these starting with P and, for example, dur or range or rand, these are patterns making. So, for example, pdur, let's print something out so we can understand what it is doing. So, yeah, okay. With pdur, it kind of resembles an Euclidean rhythm that I don't know if you're aware of. Basically, you have some time length of duration of beats, and then it distributes evenly whatever value you're suggesting to do to insert. Like, for example, 3 samples within 8 beats evenly distributed. So it will sound like this. For example, just let's say 1/4. Okay, it's like the same of, yeah, it's like the same of 1. 1 every 4. But then I can change it and say not 4 but 8, and within 8, 2 for example, same, right? 1 4 2 8, just multiplied by 2. But what about 3 8? And you still have some rhythms. Then you can multiply this by 2, and so it's 16, and you enter, for example, the realm of 5/16. You can still recognize some sort of these sounds, and it's quite easy. I think it's very powerful, FoxDot, for doing this, because all I have to do is change 2 values, and I can change very quickly. On the fly, just changing 1 value, and all the rhythm change. But Ali mentioned, I've heard him before, samples. So these, of course, letters and symbols refers to folders of samples. So starting from 0, which is the first in the within the folder, you can also change and, for example, ask FoxDot to play the third one, because of course 0, 1, 2. And it can change, and yeah, oh no, I heard the voice, sorry. And then you can also have another cool feature, which is prand for randomization. It took integers, and I could say, okay, the attribute samples, so change the sample I want to play, but please select a random number from 0 to 6 every second. So it's a little bit unpredictable, so not always cool, but still could be a nice functionalities to have some diversity within the samples. So P-dur we have seen. Also P-range is another one. If you don't want complete randomness, you can ask, of course, FoxDot to select a range of 2 numbers, and it took 1 number within this range. So for example 8, 12. And yeah, I will skip P-rhythm because it's not even clear for me, to be honest. But yeah, cool feature, this player.get underscore fx and round brackets, and it will print all the possible attributes for also the synth, but most of them works only also on play. For example, yeah, let's add some effects. There are few effects pre-built in Renardo and pitch glitch fork version. For example, for reverb, which is a little bit uncomfortable, you have you have to set up 2 attributes actually. One is room, how big is the room, and can go higher than 1, so for example 2 or even 20. And then there is mix, so how much are you gonna listen the reverb effect. And I would also recommend, if you're not into, of course, ambient music in which you want really big really big reverbs, on samples like drum samples, probably from 0.125 to 0.25 is a nice balance. Because then, of course, it kinds, yeah, of course, you shouldn't have a reverb on the kick, but that's another. You can do whatever you want, actually. And then there is, for example, echo, which is a little bit sketchy. I don't know on my computer, but then you will have like, this is easy. It should be just, 1 kick. and 0.5, the echo is like doubling, and then you can have probably 66. Yeah. But you can check player.getFX, and you will find also some, well, a lot of them, like distortion, chop is nice, there is echo. Oh yeah, the filters could also be interesting to getting a little bit. So let's say LPF. So yeah, you can change also with linvar, or even better, xvar, like it's exponential. So from, let's say, here to 700 and 500 in 16 beats. And you can add some movement to the beat also using these linvar, xvar functionalities to, you know, get a dynamic touch.
Sorry, I didn't understand the xbar and
Okay, because I don't know, I've seen Ali before using linvar, so, well, it's, you can have a variation, like for example, with simple var, and then you have a round brackets and two values, one range and a second values. So the first range, I could say, okay, what I'm asking here to do is like, okay, every 16, so 16, the second value, play 2400, and then after 16 change to 500 as a value and keep it for 16 and going back in a loop. But then you can have also a linvar in which you're saying from 400 up to the maximum range, which is 1200, always within a 16 duration. So it's like the filter is opening, but not that much. Yeah, it's also maybe longer, you can perceive better the change.
so it starts from the lowest, and in the end of the 32 will be in this, the highest.
Yeah.
Like gradually
Moving the, yeah, like a knob
knob.
moved of the filter.
32 means 32 beats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's the duration. But for example, in not in linvar, because of course it's dynamic, linvar and an xvar, but in var you can actually set up also a list here. So for example, I want 3 beats at 100, and then, I don't know, 5 beats at 2400. So of course it's like more perceivable. You wanna, especially in filters and in effects, maybe you want yeah, like slower dynamics, flows of things, etc. So yeah.
And the X bar, sorry, just to finish. And the X bar is just like the mean bar, but it's exponential.
Yeah, it's
Not
exponential.
linear,
It's not linear, but it's
exponential.
more like a curve. Not a math expert, nor a programmer expert. So, and then you can also want another situation of affecting with effects only certain samples, not the whole set of samples. So in this case, There are some other. You can find it in the tutorials. They explain how to assign a certain values to a certain letter within the one you have called here, but it is quite long to do it, especially on the fly. So it is preferable maybe to set up a list, and then with this. As I was saying, I don't want kick to be affected with reverb, and so I say, okay, the room for the first has to be 0, and the room for the second has to be 2. So this will only affect hi-hats. And even if, well, this is a repetition, but then if I have also other like this, you have to count and say, okay, only on the snare I want this the reverb, so it's like 0 0 0 0 2. So only the snare will be affected by the room effect. And with reverb, it's always good, especially with samples, to set up a cutoff, just to cut the reverb. Otherwise, it could be, it starts to overlap and probably gets some, You
just cut the
just cut the tail of the reverb at a certain point, and so it's better because I had some problem with that when I was really into it.
After 10 minutes, like...
no, not 10 minutes, like 30 seconds or so, and my computer used to explode. But yeah, okay, this one, yeah, this is quite interesting. The fade-in function, really nice one. Added in Renardo, but you have seen before. And then you have also temporality function. For example, you wanna plan some sort of change in advance and keep it regular, so you can add dot and then the function every open squares, brackets, and then you have every 8 beats do palindrome function, which of course it's like reading the set of samples from the beginning and then go back forth to the from the end to the reversing line. Nah, you cannot hear. Yeah, okay. Or if you're more into randomness, you can also have sometimes, so you don't even have to declare when you want these amen functionalities, which is really nice to happen. So you can add sometimes. Or like every 4 do an amen break. Okay, these of course are like cycles. Every 4 cycles do one of amen, like an amen break. So yeah.
Technically, what are these names? Palindrome, amen, are they functions?
These are functions, and you can call it directly even without the temporal setting, in the sense that you can do also directly, amen like this.
Okay.
But of course, oh no, oh, yeah. No, cannot do it. Sorry, I used to remember that you can actually call this function also directly. Nope. No, because it's consequential with the dot. But yeah, well, this works. So yeah, but of course you can check in within the tutorials, especially the introduction, the introductive one within FoxDot editor. It is all well written. Here I'm all like sketched because I didn't know the level of the participants, so I have a little bit of anything inside also to show how, you know, some functionality is fun, because I think that all in all, like having these display function is very easy for getting into FoxDot editing in like a second. You can also, I don't know, adding literally random stuff, and then it will produce something. Maybe add some brackets, and then with little tweaks like because rate, of course, it's the rate at which the speed at which the sample is played, and you can go also minus 0, so negative sign numbers, and it will reverse the sample. So no functionality, you just have so quite easy to modify and having something interesting in really short time. Yeah, you can also have, this is another functionality which is interesting. For example, you're playing both key 1 player and key 2 player at the same time. And maybe you want to affect, now key 1 for example has 3 lines of different attributes and values, and you can easily get lost, especially in a live situation. So you can call key 1 and then going to change the attribute directly by calling it, like for example sample. Now it's changing every time. I want to keep it stable. And if I want, once again, that kind of variation, I have to, of course, but also the duration in real time. I mean, 2 lines of code, completely different beats, so it could be really interesting to, you know, having more. Another completely, yeah. I'm almost at the end. I don't know if we will have some time to look at loops, but the idea was, yeah, just experiment with these, with the parts of playing the parts of the loops, and add some, yeah, of course, duration and amp, but also effects like room and whatever. Explore a little bit by your own the loops that I provide you. Yeah, and of course there is, with this PDUR, you can also have quite easily polyrhythms. So for example, P1, P2, now this is not a polyrhythm, this is one. And once again you can change it. As easy as just changing one values within this function like PDUR. Then you can access a whole world of polyrhythms, and then you can search for them, study them, or just put some random numbers. For example, in 7, divided by 7, it's always interesting, but maybe with more stuff. Can gradually not easy to dance, but still interesting to experiment with. The last thing, and then I close, this, let's call it bonus technique, which I found out by experimenting random stuff. I was like struggling a lot to find a way to, how's it called, like the ducking, side chaining one synth, and then I experimented with the pattern P Euclid 2, and it took 4 values. So you have, let's put it like this. Okay, so somehow it's similar to P-Dur in the sense that you can say, okay, first value, this is the total on 16-bit, you have 1, and then you can also declare some other values like 0.5 and 0. Because why 0.5 and 0? Because I'm putting this on the amp. So in theory it should be like more variating the rhythm. And I discovered that 16 and 16, like with this kind of random but still full of samples, you can have, if you put it 16-16, no sound at all. But as soon as you lower the first value, some of the samples, more and more samples, are played up to the point of 1/16. I don't know why, honestly, but this is like the best of algorithmic production in this sense that you're trying to experiment and you don't have to know everything that's going on. But if you put like this, you have the whole samples played. So with these, the idea is to have like something I can play on. And change really quick the number of the sample played, so also the feels of the track. So if I have like, then a drop, and then yeah. Yeah, so I think that's it. I will send you, thank you for sticking, despite like it is like the 6th hour of workshop and everything. Thank you very much for your participation. Yes, so let me save this file on the USB stick so you can have it on your own computer.
Pensi che stavo passando, cioè, un po' di chat, secondo me.
Ah, ancora lì?
Cioè,